Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be with you today and bring Dr. Jeff Grognet. As he put it, it's like Frognet, but Grognet. So Jeff, welcome to our show on Gussy.
Thank you very much, Rob. Great
Yep.
to be here.
Well, it's very nice to be able to sit here and chat with you, and I want to know actually a bunch of things about you, but just for everybody, super quick, let's just do a quick run down on who you are and like what your practice is like, and then we'll take it off from there.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Jeff, or Dr. Jeff, if you want to get formal. That's the way I do it. And I've been a veterinarian for 40 years. And all that time I've been teaching. I started with first aid, then a veterinary assistant. So I put through an amazing number now, 42,000 students. But the key is, because of this education thing, I actually sold the practice 2 years ago. And now I'm full bore education, but it's full bore holistic education because that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years in practice. And so that's what I'm doing. You can find me on the internet. I'm sure you'll tell people about that, Rob.
That's right.
But the main thing is that I'm trying to get people to adopt holistic ways, and that is feeding, vaccines, toxins, treatments, whatever. And I do that through education on my site.
Right. Okay. Dr. Jeff's website is up on the screen, newearthvet.com. And if, by the way, there's a ebook there at the, just scroll to the bottom of his homepage, you could download a free ebook, right? Dr. Jeff?
That's right. Yeah. It's called a holistic guidebook. So it gives you an idea what my thinking is, but also you probably realize that, hey, I can do some of this stuff. And that's
Right.
what it's there. That's what it's there for.
That's great. So of particular interest to me personally, so just personal privilege here, is the education you're doing, because I think we're at a super unique time where we have more and more of a demand for holistic, natural modalities, and just to be very general, and we have a shortage of all vets and a real shortage of holistic vets.
Yeah.
So how do you, I know you've been super involved. You just mentioned how involved you are with educating, with education and educating professionals. How do you see addressing the future of holistic? How do you see holistic vet medicine in general, and how do you see addressing the shortage of it?
Yeah, I think holistic medicine is going to have a huge impact on being able to satisfy the veterinary needs. Because what's happening right now is that if I call up a veterinarian and I want to get my dog in, they're going to say, hey, yeah, sure, you can. We've got a month waiting list or something like that, right? And it's just I call it a crime. When I first started, people were able to phone the hospital and say, hey, can I get in? Sure, 2:00 this afternoon.
Yeah,
we're on our way. And that's gone. It's completely gone. And a lot of it is that there's just simply not enough veterinarians to meet the demand. Lots more people have pets. The last thing I'm going to say is the vets are slacking off. They are busting their butts trying to keep up with things.
Yeah.
But also they're keeping up conventionally. And here's the thing we'll talk about today, Rob, and that is, right now, veterinarians are sending out reminders for either every year or every 3-year vaccines conventionally, which means that if you've got a dog, you're going in every year or every 3 years to get in there and get them checked out, get them vaccinated, and then get back home. And things are changing. It's even changed for humans like me, and that is, 10 years ago, and I don't know if you're not as old as I am. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
So the point is, 10 years ago, my doctor told me that, yeah, it's a good idea to see every year, stick finger up the bum, do a PSA test. Like this was sort of general stuff that was you did every year because they're in that prevention mode. And now the annual exam in human medicine has gone.
Yeah.
As in unless you're on prescriptions or something like that. But the point is, they're not calling us in to go get checked regularly. And so that's one side. The other side is the whole vaccine issue. The reason people are going in is because they get that card in the mail that says Fluffy or Rover is due for vaccines because they've been, quote, expired. And they don't. And the point is that dog vaccines, we know, last for at least 9 years. And actually, they last a lifetime. And so why are we keep going back? And so if we can change our thinking as to follow these vaccine ideas, then what's going to happen is that our actually veterinary demand is going to go down. I could solve the veterinary crisis within a year by doing that. Mm. But it takes a whole mindset change to be able to do that. But that's the way we had it at our practice. We did not have them coming in every year.
Yeah.
You know, and so we were actually doing what veterinarians are supposed to do. We were dealing with sickies. Yeah.
The 9 years that you brought up, the vaccines last, are you referring to the challenge, the study?
No, the challenge study I think you're talking about was the rabies challenge study. Yeah. And that actually terminated before they could prove that 7 years was allowable. They did the 5-year test and they said, hey, it's good for 5 years. We know we're doing great. And then when it came down to test it for the 7-year things, like 2 years later, they weren't able to, sounds crazy, but they weren't able to get any rabies virus to test the animals. So they had to terminate it. Wow. And so that unfortunately finished right there. And because of the cost of it, you're not going to get companies doing a repeat of that. It's just impossible. No, the 9 years comes from the guidelines that were set up originally by American Animal Hospital Association. And then also the same thing was adopted by the World Small Animal Veterinary Association. Mm. And this is the conundrum in their guidelines. What the guidelines state is that we shouldn't be doing vaccines any more often than every 3 years. Okay? Yep. The thing that most veterinarians don't read is the any more often than, because they say, oh, we should be doing them every 3 years. So, and then in this small print beside that, it said, we know that parvo and distemper, so we're talking core vaccines only, parvo and distemper last for 9 years. Comma, and possibly a lifetime. Mm. Okay. In cats, it's 7 years for the core vaccines. Mm. Okay, so that brings the felines in there for you. Yeah. And so based on that, we can do the puppy vaccines. And then if we just follow that number, we can say, okay, we're doing 9 years time. Yeah. Wow. Okay. But there's also other ways using Titer, doing a Titer test that's what we did at our practice. And that is we're able to extend it and say, hey, no, we're good, period.
At the 9 year mark, you would Titer and then decide if you needed to even.
No, actually, it's a different method. So I'll go over that for you. Titers can be used 2 ways. Okay. One way, which is the most common way that veterinarians use it, is that they will say, oh, Rover's due for vaccines this year. And so rather than that, let's do a titer and see if he needs the vaccine. Okay. So what they did is they did a titer to measure the immunity, and that is they're checking the antibody level to either distemper or parvo. Yep. Okay. So a titer tells you, are there antibodies present in the bloodstream? Okay. Okay. Now, the way that I was working with this, and when I say we, the practice that we had was me and also my wife, who's a veterinarian. Okay. Okay, so that's the royal we, and very justified we. And so what we did was that we got them in and we did one vaccine when they were 16 weeks old. Okay. And the reason we did that is to make sure we weren't in the time where maternal antibodies could interfere with the vaccination process, okay, or I should say the immunization process. We wanted to make sure they responded to the vaccine. Yeah. And then a month later, we do a titer.
Yep.
So the point of that titer is to find out, did that dog become immunized? Did that dog respond to the vaccine?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the kicker is, when you and I were little guys, I got vaccines for measles, I got polio, I got those vaccines. How many boosters have you had since you were that young, Rob?
I don't think any.
Bingo. Yeah. And why is that? It's because immunity lasts for a lifetime for the viral vaccines. Okay, we'll pin it down to those guys. And so because of that, we get vaccinated as kids, we don't get vaccinated again.
Yeah.
And there's this whole concept called memory.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, if I vaccinate a puppy at 16 weeks old and I inject the vaccine, the viruses in the vaccine, the puppy reacts. And the way they react is they produce antibodies. The antibodies are produced by what we call B lymphocytes. They're the little tiny guys. But their job is to produce antibodies specific to that bug.
Yeah.
Okay. And they do that to every other bug in the body, every other one. Okay. But the point is, we've now generated a clone of B lymphocytes and their sole job is to produce antibodies to distemper, for example. Okay.
Yep.
So they produce antibodies, and then we do a blood test and say, hey, we woke them up. They're working. They're on track. We know they exist. Okay.
Yep.
Now, every immunology text in the world will tell you that memory cells last for a lifetime of the animal, the host.
Okay.
So we've proven they exist. At some point, usually, if the animal lives long enough, and it probably, in our case, it probably is very true because of our ages, because we can live to 90, eventually the antibody level starts to go down. It always does. Okay. But this is the key. It quite often doesn't get to zero, but it may get to the point where it's undetectable.
Mm.
Therefore, the conventional veterinarian is going to say, oh, it's below that threshold, we need to vaccinate.
Mm-hmm.
But if we've done the titer already, what that means is that we know the immune system's on board, we know there's memory going on. So we actually do not need to do another titer in that dog's lifetime.
Mm.
Because if it's negative or positive, we're still going to make the same assumption that, no, the cells are there, they're ready to go into action. If the disease came along, they would react. It's what's called an anamnestic response. It's a big fancy name for it. But what it means is that they were there, dormant, and then they blew out and attacked it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the key. And interestingly, I did a talk on this, and I had 3 other veterinarians on the talk with me, and they're all of my chronologic gender. Mm-hmm. And I said, how many times have you seen a dog out of puppyhood that's been vaccinated die from that disease, no matter how many vaccines it's had or not? And the answer was 0. So if they go through a successful puppy series, they are protected. And I was told that when I was in vet school. And that is the veterinarian that taught us immunology there said specifically, parvovirus is such a great virus that it creates full-blown, lifelong immunity, either with vaccination or with the disease itself. Mm. So that was the immunology prof. Meanwhile, the small animal internal prof was saying, oh yeah, don't forget to vaccinate every year.
Mm. Wow. So a couple things from the everyday consumer point of view who's watching this. Number one, what is your view on why not just, keep a schedule every 3 years? What's the harm? What's the problem? If it's just a matter of cost, maybe my insurance picks up the cost. Why wouldn't I make sure that they're totally covered and not leave anything to chance? Let's just answer that question first.
Yeah. Some people like that argument. And also some people like buying lots of insurance for dogs and cats as well, right? And that is, if you pay enough for the insurance, it will pay for everything.
Yeah.
And you're going to be paying extra because the veterinarian is getting the same fees, but you're paying more because the insurance company's in there. But the point is that the vaccines, when you hear about vaccines, the terms you keep hearing repeatedly are efficacious and safe. Those are the two buzzwords around surrounding vaccines.
Safe and effective. Yeah.
Yep, safe and effective. And the problem with those two words is that, first off, effective. When you're dealing with the core vaccines, the distemper parvo, that is effective. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. When we're dealing with the ones for the non-core vaccines, and I'm thinking leptospirosis, Lyme disease, canine influenza, those ones, Bordetella, they're not 100%. They can still get the disease. And so there's a lot of controversy on that, especially when you're talking about lepto. That's probably the kingpin of this one. But the other side is when you've got the other worry is, are they safe? And certainly with vaccines, you can see the obvious things. And that is, the most obvious thing is you give an injection of a vaccine to a dog and boom, it can have, I call it the kid that gets the peanut that has the full-blown allergy.
Yeah.
Right? And believe it or not, I've actually never seen that in a dog or a cat. Okay, but I know veterinarians that have. They vaccinate an animal, and within 15 minutes, holy moly, we got a problem here. And they're putting on IV fluids, giving them adrenaline, and pulling them through. The more common thing is that you'll bring your dog home, and then you'll notice that half an hour later, the muzzle's swelling up. And that's what that's where you have a dachshund trying to be looking like a Shar-Pei. Oh, wow. Right? Their whole muzzle is blowing up. Their eyelids are blowing up. Their ears are getting thicker. I mean, it's just, this is the good point. They've already passed the point where they can die from this because they're not having the full anaphylactic reaction. They're having a delayed reaction.
This is the good news.
That's the good news, okay? The bad news is that it's telling us the dog's reacting.
Yeah.
So do we want to test the dog next time just to see if it can, has anything worse? I'd be avoiding that like the plague. But the other side with all this is that vaccines, from the holistic standpoint, are really tied in with a lot of other diseases. Mm-hmm. And certainly we can see, and this is in the scientific literature beautifully, we can see inflammation in bone. We can see what's called hypertrophic osteodystrophy, where we vaccinate puppies, especially with multivalent vaccines, the one with lepto and all that stuff. And all of a sudden their joints are just swelling up. Okay. So they're in a lot of pain, and it can cause long-term disfigurement. Mm. So there's that one that's really quite obvious. There's hemolytic anemia. And what happens in that one is that the body's immune system is reacting to the red blood cells in the bloodstream. And it destroys them, so many, that they can become anemic. Oh. And this is where the dichotomy comes in. Conventional veterinarians generally will say, well, vaccines got nothing to do with that because it doesn't occur at that time. But studies show that quite a lot of them occur within a month of vaccination. Mm-hmm. That's one side. But the other thing is this interesting fact. If you read about hemolytic anemia in the veterinary textbooks, it actually says in there, do not vaccinate dogs that have had hemolytic anemia in case it triggers another event. So it's there, but it's ignored, right? But so definitely there's something there. But the other side of that is that we're looking at the chronic issues of over-vaccination. Okay. And in cats, we know that the injections can cause tumor formation. Yep. That's a biggie. And then what's the leading cause of death in dogs is cancer.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, we're seeing lots of that. Compared to when I first started practicing, I am seeing so much more cancer, tumors, and such. And some breeds are just devastated by that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, a golden retriever, which used to be a hardy breed, now, if they pass 9 years old, it's like, all right.
Wow.
You know, Bernese mountain dogs, a 10-year-old Berner, almost unheard of.
Wow.
Okay? And so cancer's one. And the other one, if you always think of vaccines as stimulating the immune system,
Yeah.
is that the reason why we're seeing so many dogs with allergies these days?
Mm.
Okay, and that's a sort of a tenuous one, but holistic practitioners are fully on board with that, saying, yeah, we've got to try to get the vaccines down so we don't see all this cancer stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it you think that, so if you have all these dogs that are, presumably getting similar vaccine schedule,
Mm-hmm.
but Goldens are having a rougher time of it, and so are Bernese Mountain Dogs. What do you think that is? Just genetics? Is it?
It's a lot of, yeah. I mean, there's got to be a genetic component.
Yeah.
When I graduated, I was told that the breed prone to cancer was the boxer.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is, if you see a lump on a boxer, assume bad news from the get-go.
Oh.
Okay, but that was the only breed that was singled out.
Yeah.
And that was in 1983.
Mm.
Okay, the world's changed. Now, a lot of it is because of, and I don't like to use the word inbreeding, but I'll call it popularity breeding.
Okay.
And that is, Goldens are a great example. There's one particular male that fathered an incredible number of offspring.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that, guess what? He had an inherited eye defect in his genes.
Yeah.
Okay. Boom, down the road, we're seeing this disease all over. Now, so if you think of it from the cancer perspective, yeah, we can have the same problem. And that is, we're just getting these genes concentrated in this limited gene pool. And unfortunately it is. If one dog does so good, then especially a male,
Yeah.
then they're just going to be sucking the semen out of that guy and going like crazy. Right?
Wow. So going back to something you said earlier, which was the dog that has the reaction doesn't have anaphylactic shock, but is the Shar-Pei looks like a Shar-Pei. The Dachshund looks like a Shar-Pei. You said something that would you test them later? No. Did you mean titer testing? Why wouldn't you titer test down the line?
No, I meant, would you test them next year by giving the same vaccine?
Oh, yeah, no. Okay.
Okay. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
And that is that, oh, we gave this vaccine, the face swelled up.
Yeah.
And this is the kicker. From the conventional side, some veterinarians will be saying, well, all we've got to do is give them a dose of Benadryl 20 minutes before, and then we can give the vaccine and we're safe.
Yeah.
If we're having to go through that hurdle and even thinking that we want to put this dog's life on the line,
yeah,
why are we giving a vaccine that's not necessary?
Yeah. Or why are we giving anything that's not necessary?
Yes. Anything at all.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Fair enough question. So do you think that when I've talked to veterinarians about the different things that make as I understand it, the vaccines work and cause a reaction so that in the body, let's just use the dog, for example, the dog's body says, oh, let me take note of this and let me cause a reaction and get the desired effect, which is an immune response, whether that's an adjuvant or something else. Do you think the same thing happens? Hypothetically, you go to the vet's office, you get this what do you call it? Multivalent? Is that what you call it?
Multivalent.
Yeah. So multivalent, which is 2, 3, 4 in one shot,
or 7 or 8.
Oh, God forbid. Yeah, 7. So all of that is going in at one time. Body deals with that rush of immediate it's a threat,
Mhm.
and comes to the aid of the dog, but then the dog like goes and steps on grass, and that reaction, everything in that dog's world is reactive. Do you think that that's maybe the cause of, like, just as an example, a grass allergy in some dogs? Could that do it?
I don't think you need the timing as such as you were sort of implying.
Yeah.
I think what it is, very simply, what it is that if you're I call it messing around with the immune system,
Yeah.
and in vaccines, and you can read stuff that goes both ways here, because we know that parvovirus vaccines tend to suppress the immune system temporarily.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other side, giving any vaccine creates a response to the immune system, so it becomes overactive.
Yeah.
So and this is well known. If you have a dog that has allergies and you vaccinate him during their allergy time, so in other words, if you've got a dog that has seasonal allergies that go from August till October every year, which is the grass season type guys, and you vaccinate them at the beginning of September, you're going to make that worse, and it's going to last longer.
Oof.
Okay. And so quite often, if we had to do any vaccines, and there we're talking more, say, the rabies, which is legally required in some places, in those cases, what we'd be wanting to do would be to say, okay, it's due in September, but we know there's a problem there. So why don't we shift it to next February, in the middle of winter, so to speak, right? And try and do it that way. In terms of being related to the allergies, and your idea is really good, Rob, and that is you've created a hyper-sensitized immune system.
Yeah.
Okay? And the thing that dogs get allergic to are the things that they're exposed to every day.
Okay.
Okay, so in other words, if they're fed a food that has corn and chicken in it, guess what? That's what they can react to. If they're going out going through grass, bingo. Yeah, that can be in it. My dog has allergies, and he's his name's Shay. He's a 6-year-old border collie cross guy, but he has food allergies. So we're very specific on what he gets. He's fed raw, and his main meat is lamb.
Yeah.
That's the one that he tolerates the best.
Mm-hmm.
He can also have venison and kangaroo. Mm-hmm. So we're talking exotic stuff. Okay. Yeah. If you sort of waggle chicken in front of his nose, he'll get diarrhea.
Yeah.
And he'll get itchy.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's got a food allergy. He also has environmental allergies.
Yeah.
So if I take him out on a July day and he goes running through grassy fields, and I don't do anything else with him, as in I just bring him home, I've got a dog that's scratching all night. Okay. Wow. So what I do is, if I'm going to grass fields, I make sure I go down to the river right after, before we get into the car. And I throw he's got a Kong on a rope. I throw it in the river, do that 3 or 4 times, rinse him off really good.
Yep.
And that solves the problem. He only had 1 vaccine. So the point is, he came across his allergies honestly.
Yeah.
And that is, he got them from his mother, and his siblings have it too.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's genetic components to all that. But the point is, we can have the genetic predisposition, but we can then change things to make the diseases come out. And I'm sure you're familiar with certain foods will create certain diseases, in the same way that vaccines will be able to trigger certain things as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Not every dog will get hemolytic anemia, but the select one will.
Yeah. You said your dog got his vaccines honestly. What do you mean by that?
No, he got his allergies honestly.
Oh, honestly. Okay. Oh, because I thought what I heard you say was through his mom, the immunity through his mom, but you meant the allergies. Okay.
Yeah, the allergies.
I misheard you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. Honestly, that's funny. So talk to me about what's in your ebook on your website. What are you teaching people on that?
One of the things, of course, is the vaccination ideas. And that is, hey, I call it the one and done. And that is with puppies, we do the one vaccine at 16 weeks, we do a titer, and then we're done. But I also address in there what to do with the non-core vaccines, as in what makes sense in that world as well. The other topics in there, there's a fair bit, but the main two other topics, one is food, and that is certainly going over, and if anyone's watching this, I'm sure they're already geared to this, and that is the perils of some of the commercial foods, as in what we're trying to avoid in terms of them nutritionally and toxins and things like that.
Yeah.
And then sort of what type of foods can we suggest? And I'm not someone who says, hey, you've got to feed raw. I'm going, just don't feed commercial. And let's just get them on a homemade raw something where you actually can identify the ingredients you're putting into it.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm talking both cats and dogs in this case, and I've got recipes in there for that. But that's the key. Being able to create a food that you can, it's similar to us, really.
Yeah.
If you can actually name what you're eating at supper time, rather than coming out in this. Imagine if we were eating cereals that were this round brown and we didn't know what was in it.
Yeah.
That'd be scary too, right?
Sure, of course.
So, yeah. So that's the biggie. And then the other one is getting into, I call the parasiticides, and that is the chemicals we use for pest control. And there's certainly a focus now on some of the newer, I call it insecticides. And there we're talking specifically about flea preventives, tick preventives, heartworm preventives, that type of thing. And there's, for example, and I always like picking on Bravecto because it's the biggest seller where I am. And I've seen some of the, in this case, dogs that get toxic from it. And we never dispensed it from our hospital. This dog, I remember one came from, I call it Elsewhere Vet Hospital, and it came in, and the muscles, when he saw its legs, they're out and they're just vibrating, right? And it's like, God, this guy, and it wasn't quitting. It's like, what is going on? It's like we're thinking about having a seizure, but we never quite got there.
Wow.
It had Bravecto 2 days before. Bingo.
Wow.
And so one of the things that I always talk about when we're looking at these insecticides that we're giving them on a regular basis, and let's imagine, we're going to do a graph right here. We give a tablet right here, okay, and that's a Bravecto tablet, but this can apply to any one of these, okay?
Yeah.
We give a tablet here, the blood level goes up. Then it starts to come down. Does it ever get to zero? Well, no, because it comes down and it gets to the point where it's not effective. It's not killing the fleas as fast as it should.
Sure.
So it's come down to this level, and then we give another tablet right here, which goes boom, straight back up, and then it starts coming down again. So we never get down to the zero mark.
Yeah.
And I asked the company specifically that made Bravecto, and I asked, what blood levels do you get down to? They couldn't tell me. They never tested that. All they tested was whether or not it killed the fleas.
Yeah.
So the way I always talk to people about that little fact is this. You now have a 2-year-old daughter or granddaughter, pick the age you want, and we can stop her from getting lice from people that she's going to daycare with.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is give this one tablet every 3 months, and it'll make sure that she never gets lice ever again. Oh, and besides that, it's an insecticide, and it may cause her to have seizures. Do you want the prescription?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I consider dogs and cats similar to your 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. We're responsible for what they're eating, what they're being given, everything.
Well, you're talking about these pills. I'm also particularly concerned not only for dogs, but for my safety on these drops. When you touch, you pet a dog and you get that on you. I mean, I don't want to be treated for fleas. I mean, I've never put that stuff on my dogs, but if that's your decision, fine. But I almost feel like if you're at a dog, for example, or out in the public, and you door on the dog, you see a dog in a store or something, there should be a disclaimer on these dogs when they have these treatments on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For just the human safety, let alone kids coming up and petting dogs. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, yeah. The when you read the product inserts, and specifically the one that I remember is Advantage is a good one, and it says allowed to dry for 2 hours before doing any petting, hugging, whatever. Right? Okay. So that as in other words, it's going to be absorbed into the the fat on the skin, and it'll be staying there, and you're not going to get it on your hands technically. But there was a case, and I'm going back about probably 30 years here, and it was one of the topicals that was used. And a woman went to the vet hospital, had all her dogs treated, and then she was driving home, and actually the fumes from it overcame her, and she had a car accident. She had a Volkswagen Beetle with 3 Saint Bernards in it.
Whoa.
But the point is, you can imagine how much was put on the dogs.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was in that enclosed space.
Whoa.
And she was overcome with that, which was kind of like, wow, that's hard to believe, So anyway, the point is, yes, they can have effects. The old stuff that we had, actually, Rob, when you go back to the 1980s, like when I graduated, we didn't have Advantage hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
So at that point, we had flea sprays, collars, and powders. Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, if you remember it, those flea sprays, I mean, if you sprayed them on, you'd almost choke with those guys. I don't know how the dogs and cats ever took it.
Yeah. Yeah. As a kid, we used this. I had Husky Collie mixes, and they got flies all the time. They lived in the backyard. They weren't indoor dogs, and we would spray them with a product called Flies Off. Yeah. And that stuff was like, I just remember going, when I was spraying it, like, and it's just so funny, when you don't know anything back then, you just do something you think is good for these dogs. Jeff, what are we going to do about our need to have everything convenient and pay a more serious price on the back end that's invisible? Yeah. I mean, it's really, all of this is about convenience, and there's not a lot of thought you need to put into it. You do it once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever the thing is. I mean, isn't that the issue? I mean, what are we going to do about this?
Well, I think you actually said it, but glossed over it so fast. And that is, back in those days, we did that, and we didn't think there was any problem.
Yeah.
I'm looking back at the beginning of my career going, I can't believe we had a flea spray called Flicks. And it was like, God, I mean, it was just horrible poison. It only lasted for a day. So you had to put it on every day if you wanted it to work. And now we look back at that and think, oh, that was so toxic. In another 20, 40 years, whatever it's going to be, we're going to look at today and say, geez, we were putting that stuff on our dogs and cats, and boy, it's amazing they made it through. Yeah. I think we're going to be looking at that. And if we get more of an adoption of the holistic ideas, it's going to go that way a lot faster.
Yeah.
And there's alternatives. And that is, you can use essential oils for working with fleas and ticks and such. There's stuff available online, but there's also, you can make it yourself.
Yeah.
One of the courses I have, it's called Become Your Own Vet. And we don't give you vet credentials, but the point is, this is in part because you can't get to see veterinarians very easily, and most of them are conventional. It's a way for you to be able to treat and identify and treat things yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things in there is how to get, how to treat the fleas. What can you use to treat these guys? And there's lots of options that way. But a lot of people as you say, don't go that route because I've got to remember to do that. It's inconvenient. It's a little bit messier.
Yeah.
All those things. Meanwhile, it's incredibly safer, and you can give one dose of the new flea products, and I'm talking Bravecto, NexGard, Simparica. There's probably a few more other in there that I haven't mentioned. And there's now evidence where you can give one dose and turn a dog into an epileptic that needs to be treated for life.
Oh.
So when are we going to start saying that, hey, the convenience is great, but we've got to back off on this idea?
Yeah.
So I'm totally with you on that, Rob.
Well, I mean, I think some people will always make that calculated risk, and it's the convenience is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will, obviously don't want to deal with fleas in their home. And we see with this drug Cytopoint, for example, the big thing with dog itching is what it's keeping these people up at night. And so this dog is affecting their sleep. They love the dog, but they got to get sleep. And that's also that convenience thing. And they don't see another way around it. And, part of that might just be they don't have the right resources in front of them. But the other part is there's a limit to what they will tolerate.
Very much so. Yeah. But in the case of allergy control, the two drugs that are up there are Apoquel and Cytopoint.
Yeah.
And if you read the drug insert on Apoquel, one of the things that it can cause is cancer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would I take that medication myself? I always look at it that way, right? And so that's one side. But people have to decide where their break point is.
Yeah.
And just to circle back to food for a second.
Yeah.
For some people, the break point is that, well, if I can't pour it out of the bag, it's too much for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, to make Shay's food every day, and I mean, I buy it frozen as packages and do it that way. So to make his food really is taking it out of the fridge, putting it in the sink, putting warm water on it, waiting, sometimes 15 minutes.
Right.
Yep. Then you take it out, and I put the supplements in it, and bingo, that's food. But that takes 15 minutes of quote time to be able to go from the freezer to his mouth. Yeah. Right. And some people's lives don't have that. Yeah. And I appreciate that. It does happen, So, but the problem is they're also, if they're that strapped on time, they're probably not making really good meals for themselves either. Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on what we want to do for ourselves nutritionally and environmentally. Environmentally meaning that what drugs do we use and such. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're located where, Dr.
I'm in Canada, British Columbia, and so I hide in a place called Parksville.
You hide in a place, Parksville. Where is Parksville? Where is that approximately?
It's on Vancouver Island.
Oh,
so Vancouver Island is off the coast of British Columbia, and I'm about halfway up on the right side.
Oh, poor you.
Pardon?
I said poor you. That's a beautiful area.
It is a beautiful area. I'm looking out at the ocean here with the islands behind. It's not bad at all.
No. BC is one of my favorite places ever. Yeah. So what do they do in Canada with vaccinations? Do they require them every 3 years, 1 year? What?
Well, in terms of it depends on who you're talking about, because I'm assuming you're talking the veterinarian.
No, right? The government.
The government? Oh, the government where I live?
Where they require, yeah.
0.
Okay.
0. There are some areas of Canada, in mainly what I call Eastern Canada, that's Ontario and such, where local municipalities will require rabies vaccines. Okay. But where I live, there's no such requirement. We don't have rabies here except in the bats occasionally.
Wow.
But in places like in Ontario where they require the rabies, that's where then which one the person gets for their animals is going to be based on the vaccine that veterinarian has.
Yeah.
Now with dogs, generally they're all 3-year vaccines in an adult dog.
Yeah.
You get one done as a puppy, you get one done a year later, and then it's good every 3 years.
Yeah.
And in other words, what you're doing, and usually they say this, you follow the manufacturer's guidelines on how long it lasts. In Catland, there's both 1-year and 3-year vaccines available.
Okay.
And the 1 year, you mentioned the big fancy word originally, adjuvants.
Yeah.
The 3-year vaccines have adjuvants, so therefore we know the protection lasts for 3 years.
Yeah.
So what they were worried about is that adjuvants possibly could be triggering the tumors that we see in cats called the feline fibrosarcoma. And so there was an enterprising vaccine company that said, hey, we've got one that's more purified.
Okay.
But it only lasts for 1 year.
Okay.
What we know now is, and this is from studies, is that taking out the adjuvant or not doesn't have any bearing on the incidence of the tumors.
Okay.
So what happens then, of course, is we're doing it annually. We're giving 3 times as many vaccines to keep them current.
Okay.
Which means we're exposing them to it. And it's the injection of anything in cats that can create the tumor predisposition.
Wow.
So I would be saying, hey, yeah, let's stick with the 3-year vaccine, guys. But the other side of the coin is let's try and reduce all the vaccines as much as we can, so we don't have this chance of developing those in cats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Everything has trade-offs.
It very definitely does. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's been a trend, and that is when I graduated, we were told as students and then as a veterinarian that, hey, you vaccinate every year because the immunity wears out. Well, that was totally wrong. We now know that does not happen. And then in 1995, that was when the first guidelines came out for 3 years. And so then it sort of, a lot of vets adopted that, but there was still around 40% that's still vaccinated annually.
Yeah.
Why? I guess they've never read anything since then, since they graduated. But we're also seeing a resurgence, and that is as we get more of the practices being taken over by corporate structures, they're actually dictating what the vaccine schedules will be, and they're moving back to a 1-year schedule as well.
Wow, surprise.
Yeah. And so that's where the problem lies, and that is if we keep pushing this thing to a 1 year, which means everyone's going to be taking all those dogs and cats in on an annual basis, we're never going to be able to get to see the vet for an eye problem.
Yeah. Wow. Do you see the future of veterinary practices, I guess ultimately being in trouble when it comes to like a company whose name, any company that's name does not need to be mentioned, but it owns the entire cycle from food to or it owns a piece of a company, doesn't maybe even own it wholly.
Yeah.
Food, insurance, medical practice, and in some cases even, the companies that put them to sleep and, euthanize them, and also not euthanize them, but
cremation.
Yeah, cremation and all that sort of stuff. So beginning to end, do you think is that problematic to you for vets?
It's any type of infiltration in that, I call it integrative management. Because what we're seeing is exactly that, Rob. And that is the veterinarians who are working under that umbrella are suggesting the foods that are made by that company, so they're funneling everything in, and which is means that dogs and cats are being placed into a cookie cutter veterinary operation.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is blatantly obvious. There was one case because I have with my students, I
Yeah.
see this all the time, and that is they'll say, "Yeah, I've got an indoor cat, and I just got all these vaccines for it." I'm going, okay, so your indoor must mean that you don't have any screens on the windows and or anything like that. They said, no, it's all screened, and we're on the 12th floor of an apartment building. I said, well, there's no risk. So why are we getting the vaccines? And then it starts to all come out. They've also defleed it, dewormed it, and done all this other stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
we don't have any risk here, guys. So we have to look at the individual animal, and that way we can make logical decisions on the healthcare. It's kind of like having a 16-year-old dog with a wart on its nose, and you're going, yeah, we better book surgery on that guy.
Yeah.
Hold it. Can't he just die with that wart?
Yeah.
Let's go that route instead.
Yeah. So how do you deal with immunity other than vaccines? So what do you recommend to shore up resilience in dogs and cats?
The main thing, number one, I'm not, as you gathered, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm saying yes, get the initial ones, and the core vaccines will be good for life.
Yeah.
In terms of the other ones, though, yes, keeping the immunity up is the best way to go. Yeah. And the way to do that, there's two approaches. One is feeding the right diet, and I'm sure you're all behind that, Rob. And that is, hey, this is a dog. What type of food should this dog eat?
Biologically appropriate.
Let's work on that first, right?
Yep.
And that is, let's get the right food going into the dog's mouth, and that way we can keep them as healthy as they can. Yep. And when you look at dogs that are fed, and I could do this very easily. If someone brought a dog in and put him on the table, and then I went in that room a minute or 3 minutes later, just by going in the room and smelling, I could tell what type of food that dog was on.
Wow.
Okay. And then all I had to do was to go over, part the hair coat, and you go, oh, look at all that scurf, dandruff and such. And the other side is you get your hand on the hair coat and you just rub back and forth, and you go, ugh, yeah. And that's Purina, right?
It's like you're a sommelier of dog food smells.
Yeah, but you could do it. I used to I'm going 20 years ago when I ran a marathon, and so I was training all that time. But there was a dog I saw just down the hill from me, and it's a Rottweiler, and he always came out so aggressive, ready to kill me, right? And it's like, his name was Butch. And I said, Butch, get your ass over here, and I just give him a bum scrub, and most of the time, especially in the winter, I was wearing gloves. And then it's like, oh God, and that was my Purina dog, right? I knew what they fed him. It was cheap stuff. His hair coat looked horrible, right? Yeah. And so the point is, if you're going to be feeding them a commercial diet, especially a cheaper commercial diet, they're going to be deficient. Yeah. Which means their body is deficient. Their immune system is deficient. Everything. Yeah. Versus if you feed them the right diet, and you can go raw, you can go with the home cooked, but the ingredients in it. Hey, then we have a chance of actually getting an immune system that's capable of doing something.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we want to do there.
You know what I notice when I'm out on a walk and I see a dog, a medium big dog, mm-hmm. like a golden retriever, not a Great Dane. I have picked up other dogs' poops along our dog walk because, some people just are out of dog bags or whatever the case is. And I'll notice how heavy these poops are.
Yep.
Physically heavy. And I want to hear something from you here. So my dog Gus has always been raw fed, except when he was a puppy, he had a mix of some stuff, but basically his whole life he's been raw fed. Really great diet. And I was taught by Ian Billinghurst, so there's that. And so I can honestly tell you, for every pound let's just use a pound of food that I feed him. He actually eats 2 pounds of raw meat a day. He's as lean as can be. People don't think I feed him enough. He's built like a
Mhm.
coyote, and he's a Labrador, and he's just turned 7 years old as of last week. And so if I feed him 2 pounds, I will bet you his because he fasts once a week. So I always have one day a week where all he basically gets is either water or coconut water. I usually buy him a coconut water, and that's how I get through the guilt of not feeding him.
That's big of you. Yes.
Well, I try, and it's also coconut water is amazing. The alkalinity, and it's a full food
Mhm.
really, but the alkalinity just it cleans the colon right out. So I love it because the whole point of him fasting is not only not eating, but also evacuating his colon fully, I hope, and
Mhm.
and then it just gives the whole entire organ system a rest. Well, back to this 2 pound meal. I've done this for a long time. I fed raw for over 23 or 4 years now. I basically only pick up in the form of a poop, maybe about a quarter, depending on the health of the animal, the age of the animal, a quarter to a third of a pound of food. And I'm
Mhm.
always fascinated, like, where does this, like, seriously, where does this go? I mean, where does this meat and bone and fat and all this stuff go? It's getting used up by the body,
Mhm.
but it's not coming out. Like, it still is crazy, mysterious to me, in the most exciting way. So, what's your answer to that? I'd love to hear that from you.
Oh, good. I thought maybe you're going to be asking me to go around smelling dog poop, but
No, no.
okay.
Although
So
you're the guy, you're clearly the veterinarian to do it.
okay, don't spread that around.
No, I
Okay.
won't. I won't. But
So
you tell,
anyway,
yeah,
no, and this is the kicker. Like when I take my dog for a walk, and we go out on trails, and people take their dogs out, and in the first 300 feet, that's where all of them poop,
yes,
right? And so the key is with Shay, he's 45-pound dog, okay, but
yeah,
it's smaller than your guy.
yeah,
But the poops he has, I mean, because I watch it very well too. Um, the big ones would be about an inch in diameter and about 4 inches long.
that's
You might have two of those in a day, and
yeah,
that's it, right?
that's right.
So there's 2 points. One is that the food that you're giving also contains water,
Yeah,
less than what's coming out in the poop. So it's going
that's
to
right.
go down that way. But the other side, and this is the most important part, and this is what differentiates Shay's poop from that other dog's poop, is that it's called the digestibility,
Yeah,
pure and simple. And so if that food that you are giving, was 100% digestible,
yeah,
that would mean there'd be no poop coming out
yeah,
from the food.
yeah,
Okay. And so that tells you. So, in other words, if you were to give him just I call it sugar cubes or
yeah,
something like that, there'd be nothing coming out the back end,
yeah,
right? It'd be totally dissolved and absorbed, and that's it.
yeah,
Okay. And then the flip side of that is if you feed your regular kibble, which is 50% carbs, that is all plant material. So therefore, yeah, you're going to be producing large, voluminous, smelly, usually softish stools. And
yeah,
the point is that yeah, it's all based on that being much less digestible than what Shay's getting, right? And so it's just what's left. That's all it is. But the point is, there's so much of it that's being absorbed, utilized by the body as a you can call it a chemical, but it's a nutrient,
yeah,
right? And it just gets utilized and then peed out.
yeah.
That's
Right.
that's really it, right?
It's a miracle. I mean, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
And then then you've got a lot of times you've got that. Do you have this thing where my dog gets the bone? You know, he he grinds it up, and there's he has a very similar poop to your dog, but then at the end it's this I call it a spent fuel rod. It's the bone that he pulled out all the good stuff from the bone, but it's all the trash of the bone. And yeah, and it's just, he doesn't need it. Body doesn't need it. It's all, he's pulled everything out of it he needs. And I just go, okay, well, here it is.
Okay.
That's also good. It's really good for this, it's beyond roughage. It's this, it's like this great cleaner through the colon, that, and also anal glands and all that fun stuff. So, a lot of dogs that have these anal gland problems, the first thing I always tell people, my friends, I'll just say, well, maybe look at the diet and, add some more bone to it and, real clean food.
Yeah, no, there's actually a medication for anal sacs issues.
Yeah.
And what it is it's a heavy duty fiber.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's another medication. It's called good food.
Yeah. And so it's like, I know another way of solving that issue, right?
Yeah.
And it's called, let's bulk up the stool and make it work a little bit more. I'm just going to bring this in just so people can understand this, though. The food that we get for Shay is, as I mentioned, very exotic in the protein department.
Yeah.
Because of that, there is no bone in it.
Yeah.
Okay, as in they sell it as the meat, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I would love to give him a bone. Okay, and I've tried it over the years, and I've given him chicken. Originally, it was chicken bones, and then moved into the beef bones, things like that. And unfortunately, his allergies are severe enough that he gets diarrhea with any of the bones that we try. And so we can't go to the pet store or anywhere and get a llama bone in Canada. It just doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we have to go, unfortunately, the nutritional supplement way. And then he gets his chewing on, quote, toys. And he does. Every night he's chewing on the toys, and it works well, and his teeth are really good because of that. But unfortunately, when you have dogs with allergies, and this is something I want to just push here, if you've got a dog that has allergies and you're giving them bones, you might be having a problem with that. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're limited on your bones. That's the point.
It gets back to this thing of every dog has a innumerable amount of factors that make it unique. And that's everything from genetics to epigenetics to where it lived, how it lived before it got to you, if it's a rescue. And then, of course, if you had it since 7 weeks, 8 weeks or whatever, what that dog was exposed to, medications, therapies, vaccinations, food, all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's it takes a fair amount of thoughtful, sober consideration. And, that's what, we do for our kids, those of us who have kids. I don't have kids, but for those of us that have kids, you really do have to take a beat and think about the big picture. And I hope that most people, who are watching videos like this are at least giving. I think most people are doing this. More people are doing this now than when I was a kid. I was laughing with my mom recently. She was just saying that, when we were young, you never saw people walking their dogs, and now everybody walks their dogs. And something's happened in the world where people are just taking better care of their dogs. And, I think she's right. It's an interesting phenomenon.
Very right. Yeah. The biggest cause, one of the biggest cause of deaths when I was first graduated, or just before that, was being hit by a car. Now, I used to do 2 bone surgeries every week at the hospital I started out at.
Wow.
Okay, so it was a major problem. And that wasn't all of them, because a fair number were put down because of the cost of doing bone surgery.
Ooh.
Right? So now, fast forward to this, my last year, if we saw 2 a year, at the practice, they're being hit by a car. It's like, wow, the numbers are up.
Wow.
You know, and most of those have been run over by their own mom and dad because they come in the driveway and Rover comes out, Mom, how are you?
Oh,
You know, and that was it, right?
I would die.
So the point is that it's all changed. We had leash laws that made them so they're not out in the wild anymore.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're taken care of much better. And if we can extend that thing to keep taking care of them much better from the holistic world, then we're going to have them here longer. You mentioned one thing about your dog being coyote-like. And I just want to push this thing. Unfortunately, it was Purina research, but it's valid for this reasoning.
Yeah.
And that is they had labs and they were either eating all they want or the other group was eating 75% of what those guys ate. The difference was this. The fat guys lived an average of 11.2 years. The lean guys lived 13.2 years. So they got 2 more years on that diet.
That's great.
Okay. So if you think of it from your perspective, as in, hey, the diet you're feeding and you've got a lean, mean machine.
Yeah.
You're optimizing the longevity just beautifully.
Less, better metabolism, the metabolic function of the dog is much better, but so is, just like with us, if we're walking around with an extra 20 pounds, all of our joints have to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
And the same with these dogs. So, and everything with dogs is compressed in time. And I try to remind people, multiply everything by, pick a number, 6, 7 times. If you believe in that 7 years, 7 dog years, 7 human years to 1 dog year. Okay, so let's use 7. That's a big number. And so you take everything and you multiply it by 7. That is what a dog is dealing with in terms of severity of everything you're looking at,
That's right.
And that's what I apply to my dog. Anyway, Dr. Grognet, this has been great. We blew through over an hour. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been so fun to talk to you. And so just want to remind people, if you go to newearthvet.com, go to the towards the bottom of the homepage, you'll get Dr. Grognet's ebook. And if anybody doesn't have access to a really great holistic vet, integrative vet, you pick your term. Consider doing phone consultations with really great minds in veterinary medicine, because if we see a bunch of questions that Gussy's got that, we see that these people don't have an ally in the vet world that they can ask these questions of. And we feel horrible because we don't give veterinary advice. And so, I wish everybody within earshot of us of this video will go out and look for a really great holistic vet to consult with by phone, by Zoom. They're out there, folks. Please go look for them and, get somebody great like Dr. Grognet to talk to. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Dr. Grognet, for your time, and enjoy beautiful BC for me, please.
You betcha. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.